Hello everyone, my name is Philip Panofsky, and this is the introductory video for the mobile judge application for the Spring 2015 Showcase event at Florida International University under the mentorship of Dr. Masoud Sajadi. Problem definition. The problem definition of our application is how to enable judges to effectively grade students with low administrative overhead. The idea that sprung to mind was mobile judge. Currently, however, the system, although it is able to gather a lot of data, it still does not give enough control to the administrator. We aim to rectify that. We give a short overview of our project schedule and note that although there have been a few hiccups along the way, the project was well underway and has been completed to a satisfactory degree. We now go to the user stories that we wanted to cover during the semester. Switch current term. Although this user story was completed to a certain degree in the previous semesters, it was still not working quite the way the product owner wanted. And so we added it to the list of user stories to complete during this semester. Next, add term. The product owner wanted to be able to add terms from the application itself without having to resort to fiddling in the database. In the same spirit, delete term was added to be able to delete terms completely and all associated data with it should the need arise. After that, the product owner wanted the current term to be explicitly stated on every single page of the application. In addition, a refactoring of the database schema was deemed necessary because of serious concerns over normalization issues as well as security issues. Next, the product owner wanted to be able to accept and reject all grades simultaneously. This is something that he could not do before, and he had to do it individually. Next, he wished to be able to export grades as CSV. After this was completed, he would be able to export grades directly from the application into a format that is directly importable into Moodle. Next, he wished to be able to import a list of judges that he would be able to then invite to attend the showcase event. This is something that he has wanted for quite a while, and until then, it was not possible to do any kind of mass invitation at all. Lastly, he wished to be able to send out mass invitations to judges to get imported before. This user story is quite too large to show here in its entirety, but it ended up being one of the most useful additions to the system to date, as it allows the product owner to invite hundreds of judges simultaneously to the application and keep track of every single one of them. Next, we want to show the use cases for the application. There are quite a few, and most of them have been named before as user stories. We go through them here in a little more detail. So for switch terms, the administrator would navigate to the settings page of the application. The system would initialize the settings page, after which the administrator clicks on the current active term listed next to the term field at the top of the page below the dashboard. Afterwards, the system gives a listing of all terms available in the system. The administrator then selects a term different from the current term, after which the system automatically loads the correct data so that it pertains to the selected term. Add term. In this use case, the administrator navigates to the settings page of the application. The system initializes the settings page, after which the administrator clicks on the Manage Terms button. The system then initializes the Manage Terms page and lists all current terms. The administrator clicks on the plus button at the top right portion of the navigation bar, after which the system initializes the Add New Term page. The administrator enters a single line term name and clicks the Save button. The system adds the new term to the database and returns the administrator to the Manage Terms page, with the newly created term set as the active term of the application. In the same spirit, delete term works by the administrator navigating to the settings page of the application. The system initializes the settings page, after which the administrator clicks again on the Manage Terms button. The system initializes the Manage Terms page and lists all the current terms, as with the add term use case. The administrator, however, then clicks delete next to the term they wish to delete. They actually swipe to the right to have that button pop up. The system shows a confirmation prompt asking the administrator if they are sure of the deletion, as it will delete all associated data that is in that term. In case that the administrator responds with yes, the system then deletes all data for the selected term and refreshes the Manage Terms page. Afterwards, there are also use cases where The administrator wanted an improvement for the GUI for desktop users, mainly with regards to scrolling and ease of entering data. So the user enters his valid credentials, for example, and presses the enter key as opposed to having to click the actual button, after which the system logs the user in and displays the view that corresponds to their role. Similar with the scrolling, the user navigates to a scrollable page of the application and uses the mouse wheel to scroll up and down, after which the application responds as if it had been actually dragged on a touchscreen. After that, another one of the use cases that the product owner wished to be implemented was to make selected semester explicit, after which the user logs in and the system displays the user's view with a toolbar that states the current semester explicitly. Next, we have the export grades to CSV use case, in which the administrator clicks on the Export Students button at the top right of the current page, which is the students page in this situation, after which the system will prompt the administrator if they wish to export all current grades. If the administrator replies with a yes, the system then retrieves all current student grades, prepares it in a CSV format, and sends it to the administrator for downloading. Similarly, we also have the Import Judges use case here, during which the administrator clicks on the Import Judges button at the top right of the current page, which is in this case the Prospective Judges page, after which the system will open a dialog box for the administrator to select a file to upload. The administrator selects a file, and the system uploads the file, parses it, and loads the list of prospective judges into the application. The file in this case is a comma-separated value file, or CSV file. Next, we have the Accept All Grades use case. The administrator clicks on the Accept All Grades button at the top right of the current page, which in this case is the Grades page. System will prompt the administrator if they wish to accept all current grades. The administrator replies with yes, and the system accepts all grades and reloads the current view to reflect the grades being accepted. Similarly to the above, the Reject All Grades works pretty much identically, except that the system asks if the administrator wishes to reject all the grades. Lastly, we have the Send Mass Invitations button use case. This rather complex use case reflects the complexity of sending out the mass invitations in the system. So the administrator selects whether the emails he is sending are to be invitations or emails after he navigates to the email section of the application. The system will mark that the invitations or emails are being sent. Afterwards, this administrator selects whether he wishes to send out messages to current or past students. Afterwards, the system marks the selection and filters students in the application based on his selection. The administrator then selects whether he wishes to send out messages to current or past judges, after which the system will mark the selection and filters judges in the application based on that. The administrator enters any extra emails that are not in the system. The system verifies whether the emails are not in the system and provides names for those that in fact are in the system and does not send duplicate emails to those emails. The administrator then clicks the navigation button to go on to the next screen, after which the system shows a listing of the filtered selection of all available users. The administrator can then individually filter any of the students, judges, or extra emails that he actually selected, and the filtering is immediately updated to reflect the change. The administrator then clicks on the Send Invitation button, and the system responds with the total number of messages sent out. Next, we have the sequence diagrams for all of these aforementioned use cases, which I will gloss over quickly. Add term, delete term, improve GUI for desktop users, which includes the administrator, the judge, and the student actors. Explicit term notification for the judge and the students. Export grades functionality for the administrator. Import judges functionality for the administrator. Accept all grades and reject all grades for the administrator, as well as the mass invitation sequence diagram for the administrator's mass invitation use case. Next, I want to talk about system decomposition. The system consists of several subsystems, which are the home subsystem, the stats subsystem, the settings subsystem, and the email subsystem. The home subsystem is responsible for giving each user their corresponding view as they log in. This allows the system to differentiate between the different actors in the system. The stats subsystem, or live stats subsystem, in other words, is useful for pertaining to live data with regard to pending and currently submitted grades. The settings subsystem is the most vital subsystem of the entire system, as it contains any and all properties that pertain to the currently active term, and with that, the application itself. The email subsystem is used for sending out mass invitations and sending out mass emails to any users in the system that the administrator wishes to send to. Next, we have the hardware and software mapping of the system. A client-server architecture is used and is run on top of an Apache 2 web server, which hosts the application itself. A client user agent, that is a browser, interacts with the web server via HTTP requests, as HTTPS is currently not supported, unfortunately. After that, the application interacts with a MySQL database via PHP, and a deployment diagram of this behavior is shown below. Next, we have the persistent data management of the application. After the application's normalization, the database normalization, we centralized everything to hinge on the term. So everything in the application is based around a term that it applies to, as you can see in this diagram. With regard to security and privacy, we wish to say that all sensitive data is stored using the current MySQL hashing algorithms, and no plain text sensitive information, such as passwords, is stored at all. Students log in by authenticating through Google's OAuth 2 authentication API, so not even their hashed passwords are stored at all. They are simply logging in through Google, authenticating via token-based authentication. And also, the latest database improvements have yielded extra protection against SQL injection attacks, which could previously be used to make some unintended changes if a malicious user willed it. Next, we have the detailed design of the application itself. We use a three-tier client-server architecture. This allows us to scale horizontally if we wish to, as the layers themselves are very decoupled and allow us to do so. We also use the business delegate design pattern, as we delegate most of our tasks to a certain class called extDirect, which basically transforms all JavaScript calls into a manageable form that PHP can understand, which then requests data and responds in turn with the data to the presentation layer. In addition to this, the layered architecture design pattern is used to decouple the layers and make sure that no layer can talk with any layer above it, and can only interact with it as a response to a request that was previously given by a layer above it. Here's a class diagram that exemplifies the behavior of the application in a time-independent manner. Here's a state chart diagram for one of the use cases we described earlier, export student grades. The administrator navigates to the student page, after which he clicks the Export Students Grades button. Afterwards, if no student grades have been accepted, that is, the list is empty, we do nothing and return to the initial state that the administrator landed on. If at least one student grade has been accepted, then we export students and we send an export link to the administrator, after which he is also returned to his initial state. Here's a test case for one of the use cases above, which is the export student grades, which we just mentioned. The test setup is such that a PHP unit test calls the export grades function. There is no input, and the expected output is that a list of students and their grades for those who have accepted grades is given. The actual output is the expected output, and thus we say that our test is passed. Here is an example of the test drivers used to test the application using PHP unit tests, and integration tests. The full code can be seen in the final document under code specification and test drivers. Next, we wish to go to a demo of the application. On the application login page, log in using our admin credentials. Afterwards, we are greeted by the home screen of the administrator. There, we can see the total number of students in the current term, and also those who have not yet been graded. That is, judges have not yet submitted grades for these students. We also see an overview of the judges who are actually in the system right now. Out of those, 7 have already accepted the invitation and are likely registered, 0 have declined, and 0 are pending, which means that they have not finished registration yet. On the People tab, we have an overview of a lot of information. On the Students section, we see all the students in the system. Under the Judges section, we see all the judges in the system, as well as their status, so we can actually verify if they have started grading yet, if they have attended the event but have not started grading yet, or any other statuses that I will explain shortly. On the prospective judges page, we have a listing of all prospective judges that are in the application. Since there are none right now, let's import some. We navigate to a CSV file that has all the judges that we want to import. We drag up to the top to refresh, and our prospective judge shows up in the list. On the invitations page, we have all the invitations that we have sent out thus far, and their status. So we will know if a judge has rejected, if he has registered, if he has accepted but not yet registered, which is listed as pending, or if he has not RSVP'd at all. Under grades, we can actually see the grades of the students that have been given by judges. We can accept all grades and save those, or we can reject all grades and save those as well. In other cases, we can actually also individually still alter grades if we wish to. And these grades will actually show up on the students page as an average of all the grades that have been submitted for that student. Under the email section, we can send invitations or emails. For example, if we send invitations to all prospective judges that are in the current system, we'll get a listing on the next page of all the prospective judges for the current semester. We can then send invitations to those judges, which they can confirm or reject. In the same spirit, we can also send emails to that judge by unchecking the Send Emails to Invitations button, after which we'll be prompted to, we do actually have to select him as invited now though, because his status has now been invited. We can then go on to email him any kind of email that we want to show them. After which we can click send and send in email. On the stats page, we see an overview of all the current grades that have been submitted by judges to students. We can also check a graph option to see a graphical overview of this. Finally, on the settings page, we see the actual properties of the application itself for the current term. The current term is listed at the top of the page and can be changed easily by selecting any other term. We also have a judges can log in Boolean value, which allows judges to be logged in during the event, but not before or after, and also whether students can see grades. We also have some other properties here, like how many students are assigned to each judge, the start and end time of the event, as well as some locational properties of the event. In addition, we can also manage our terms from within the settings page. Once we are at the term management page, we can actually go at the top right, click the Add Term button, and add any new term we want to, which will then become the active term of the application. Note that we can actually also delete terms from right within this term management page by dragging to the right, clicking on the delete button that pops up, and clicking yes. Note that a term has to be inactive for it to be able to be deleted. In addition, we also have a questions configuration where we can configure the questions that will be listed for judges to grade the students on. We can also add questions right from within here. Which judges will then receive to grade the students. That concludes the administrative tutorial for the mobile judge application, as well as the introductory video. Thank you very much for listening.